So let's get down to basics. We need a revolution, nothing less. That's how the declaration and call to get organized for an actual revolution begins. Saturday, June 12th. We're going to show the world what? That we're getting organized for revolution, nothing less. For what? To emancipate humanity. Well, why a revolution? Because this system can't be reformed. It's got to be overthrown. So I'm going to ask you, just think for a moment, is there anything more audacious than a real revolution in the most powerful country in the world? Is there anything more difficult to do than this? Is there anything bigger, more liberatory, more than up to now it has just been in people's dreams? And most of the time it's dreams of what's going to happen after they're dead and go someplace else that doesn't exist? Then the emancipation of all of humanity, not just the emancipation of you or you, but the emancipation of all of humanity? Really? Revolution? A real revolution? Not just vent your rage, not just get a little taste of justice, but tap into the rage that millions of people feel to overthrow the source of that rage. Is there anything more serious, hard, risky, and at the same time liberatory, meaningful, beautiful with the joy of people rising up together? Is there? This is a serious question. I'm not fronting. I'm asking that seriously. Because we are going out, among other places, in one of the hardest hoods in Los Angeles. And we are going all over Los Angeles and Orange County and saying, this is what needs to be done. Join us and recruit others to do this hard, difficult thing. And we are saying, as Lenny brought forward, that this is a rare time and circumstance where we could actually do this. What a lot of nerve. You are a nervy bunch of people to go out and do that. We are nervy people. But this is not arrogant nerve, a foolish, crazy nerve. This is strategic nerve. Where do we get strategic nerve? And what is it? Well, it doesn't come in a bottle. It's not in Popeye's can of spinach, and certainly not in Popeye's fried chicken. But strategic nerve comes from a deep and a real and a true understanding of the potential of the masses of people to rise above the muck and mire, and it comes from understanding that there is a way out of this madness and suffering. And we are putting before the people, we're putting before the world, that we're getting organized now for an actual revolution that could overthrow and wipe this system off the face of the earth, because we have been led to scientifically, I'm going to say that again, we have been led to scientifically understand that this is necessary, that it is possible, and could bring about a far better and radically different world where all of humanity could really be, well, human. We can know this and we can act on this, and millions more can know this because of the leadership we have in Bob Avakian. Why? Because BA has provided us with the method and approach to know this. A scientific way to consistently understand the reality that humanity faces. Not just the horrors and the pain and the suffering of this system. People experience that every day. They may not want to always say it, but they know they're suffering, and they know others are suffering. But they turn away. But he leads us to scientifically get down to the root causes of this. What gives rise to this in this system of capitalism, imperialism, to see the connections between how the system works and all the fucked up social relations that people have to live with, and how they even think about them. What poisons people's minds, that turn them against each other, that get each of us to go out only for ourselves and against everyone else. But if people ever want to get free, They have to break with this, and that's going to take a ferocious ideological struggle with people. June 12th, we're going to show the world that we're getting organized for an actual revolution, for nothing less than revolution. And we are calling on masses of people to join us and to get others to join us. So when we knock on a door and say, Revolution Club here, it's time to get into the revolution. When we drill with our marching, when we march in the streets, when you pick up a bullhorn, when we sing, we are the mighty, mighty Revcoms. Do we come strong with the confidence and the conviction that is based and grounded in science? When we come on the scene, do people get a sense that these people are serious and they are righteous? Which is what Lenny quoted from a clip we showed on the RNL show from Bob Avakian, that's how he felt about the Black Panther Party before he really knew what they were all about. He said, these people are serious and they're righteous. I need to be there. With our seriousness, our discipline, our conviction, we should convey the confidence in the people that they can shed the ways of this system. And how do we do this? How do we do this? By struggling hard with them for what we know to be true, what has objectively been shown to be true, that this system cannot be reformed, it must be overthrown. We have the declaration and call. Okay, I don't have the title for you to see, but believe me, that's what this is. We have the 526. 5 outrages, tremendous sufferings that people face, in brief, the tremendous oppression and degradation and repression against black people and people of color, the demonization and the, frankly, torture and incarceration and death of immigrants, the way women are treated here and around the world, and LGBTQ people and differently gendered people, the way they despoil the environment, and the wars they wage and the wars they're preparing. And people hate this. Millions of people don't like this. And that is the basis for revolution. But they have to be struggled with to understand how you make a revolution, and what ideas have to be shed and what have to be taken on board so that they can make this revolution with that leadership. We have this leadership in Bob Avakian. There's never been a leader like this in this country, and there is no other leader like this in the world now. Well, a lot of people are going to bristle at that. They're going to bristle at that. They're going to say, well, what about others? Well, who? This is you can objectively determine that there is no other leader right now in the world today, and there's never been a revolutionary leader in this country who has this scientific understanding of the problem we face, how you could actually make a revolution in what is the most audacious, daring, risky venture ever mounted. But he's developed the framework for this. Do we understand how precious that is and how important that is and how much that has to be the property of the masses of people, including those who slam the door? Get your foot in there. If you find out that they have a heart for humanity, that they hate what's going on, then struggle like crazy with them over this. Because we cannot afford not to follow this leadership if we ever want to get free, says the Declaration and Call. But how do we do this? Just as I'm saying. We have to fight with people, first of all, around many questions. And principally, we have to fight with people around, why do we need a revolution? What is the character of the revolution? And what's it aiming for? This is in the paragraph that I've read slowly 3 times now on the RNL show, and you're going to get to hear it yet again. These are the things we have to struggle around. But there's things in people's thinking that stand in the way of this. So we got to fight like hell with people to get up off of this nonsense that because somebody is the same race or gender as you or comes from the same block that you live on, they know how to get this system off the back of humanity. Just think about how ridiculous that assertion is. There's no need to run from this question or attempt to finesse it. Think, well, I better not get to that right now because that'll be the end of this conversation. This is dangerous nonsense that's keeping the people from what they need. It's not, but by the way, the time we have is not to prepare for this revolution is not ours to waste. And we will waste it if we don't put this straight up to people. Yes, and this is important. BA is an old white guy. So the fuck what? The chief of the LA County Sheriffs and his number 2 are people of color. Well, go follow them if you want to, but I am not following you. Come on, these politicians and the petty reformers, what we used to call poverty pimps back in the day, movement hustlers who will play this line and play on you just so that they can get a tiny piece of the action, a little bit of funding. And yes, many of them have good intentions, and most of them started out with good intentions, but they're playing the systems game. And people need to be shaken from that. Where they lead and the criteria they set for who should be followed is bullshit. That's part of the meaning of Basics 3.1. We follow BA. Why? Because he has developed and he bases himself on the fundamentally correct and scientific understanding of where this oppression and this injustice comes from. The system it is rooted in and how this all ties together. The different forms of oppression, those 5 stops, they're all tied together. They're rooted in a system. They developed in different ways, but to get rid of one, to get rid of any of them, you have to get rid of all of them. To do that, step 1 is make a revolution. And yes, it's just step 1, but it is the big step that enables you to finally uproot this. There is no defund the police, love one another, sing kumbaya, or anything else that's going to get you there. You've got to actually make a revolution. This is why we have the strategic nerve, the strategic confidence to take the responsibility to be strategic commanders of the revolution. I just want to say this. This is not bravado or striking a pose. That's not what it's about. It's about scientific certitude. That's why Lenny's emphasized and why we say you have to want revolution bad enough that you're willing to be scientific about it. You're willing to study BA. And not just study BA, but talk about it with other people. Talk about it with the people who never heard of it, and talk about it with those who've heard a lot about it. This should be infusing our movement. I want to come back to being strategic commanders, first of all. When we're going out to people to be a part of this, we're raising their sights to what is the problem and what is the solution. And that we're trying to emancipate all of humanity, overcoming gender oppression, overcoming national oppression of people because of where they're from, what country they're from, or the race that they are, even as we understand very well, or we should, and people can get into this more scientifically, that race isn't actually a scientific category, okay? But there is oppression of people on the basis of their race, okay? The 5 stops in short. We're raising people's sights to this and to say, this is what the work of Bob Avakian is about. Having gone through not just the 60s, but gone through and studied the revolutions around the world for national liberation, but also, most importantly, the communist revolutions, first in the Soviet Union and then in China. There are some things that can be learned about this. And what we're asking people to do is to take this up. To be a strategic commander is somebody who wants to grapple with those questions, to learn about them, to discuss them. But it's true, not just to have a discussion group, a book club that goes from now to the time when fascism takes power. That would not be a good plan. We actually are struggling with people to contribute to the revolution. But we are not going to make a revolution if those Lenny described a single mother in a very difficult situation. Well, obviously she can't be a part of the revolution. No, she has to be a part of the revolution. She has to have a way to make a contribution from that place. It's not how busy you are out in the streets. We've had plenty of people, I've seen thousands of people come through this movement who are busy as could be, and we didn't build the movement we need. It's not to say we don't need people who are full-time and who are dedicated, and we don't need thousands of people more out in the streets. But the fundamental question here is people who are grappling with this, who are willing to, in a certain sense, subordinate themselves. This is what the sister was talking about. Subordinate themselves in the sense of, I want to be part of a collective process to free humanity. And in whatever way they can. We need lawyers in this. We need doctors in this. We need all kinds of people in this. We need artists who are touring the country 300 days a year playing concerts or in theater troupes. They're not going to be the people out there passing out the leaflets, but they need, if they're going to be revolutionary communists, they're going to be out there getting into this and spreading it wherever they are and finding the ways. And this is very important, and this is something that we don't pay enough attention to, which is, what are their ideas for how we can break forward? What is their experience among the people? How are the contradictions taking shape with them? How are things changing? You know, a couple of you are little bit younger than me. I know a fair amount about music, but that knowledge of the artist begins to go like this at a certain point. Well, what are they talking about? Because this is the drum beat that people listen to and generations are formed around. How do we actually crack that open? So there are people who they're all day long taking care of babies at home, but they're listening to stuff, and it's making them, they like the beat, but it's making them sick to their stomach because it's about their degradation as women. How are they seeing these questions? I'm going into this in a little bit of a micro way here, because the question is not how busy somebody gets, but what are they actually living for and what are they fighting for? And indeed, we do need to struggle with a lot of other people who are in position to rearrange and everybody to rearrange their priorities. And I thought what the sister was saying, it's fundamentally a matter of rearranging your mental priorities. And then we will work with you to figure out your life priorities. So for example, if we would get out into these hoods here, and I think we've not been going, I'm just going to say this, I don't think we've been being strong enough with the question of the oppression of women among the most oppressed. I don't think we've seen that as a strong suit, but we got to solve some problems. No, we're not going to prove our mettle by having daycare centers right now. But we can encourage masses to organize collective daycare. We can help people figure out those contradictions so that, you know, one can take care of many for an afternoon. I'll tell you what, when I first got involved, I did that. You know, I told them, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning because another comrade had to go to work in a factory while his wife was working the night shift. And I was there from 5 a.m. till about 6:30. And when we went out to sell the newspaper, there were such things. Okay? There's lots of ways to help people participate. So it's not, and I want to go, if it's okay, just want to go to another question here that relates to the one about speaking to how we deal with all kinds of problems, including repression, and which is that there has to be we have to be firm on something. In the history of the revolutions, there's been a view that what we have to do is show people we care about them. All these ideas and all this ideology is fine, but really what you got to do is prove yourself. And many people have distorted even the history of the Black Panther Party to one as a social service organization with really good uniforms and a few publicity stunts. That is not the essence of what that was. That is not what the essence of it was. This was an organization that formed to make revolution. Yes, they were defending the people against the police, but they were bringing revolutionary ideas out to the masses of people. They were struggling with people to get into, to relate to the vanguard for what? Breakfast? No. It was to relate to the vanguard to make revolution. And this has been a hallmark of what Bob Avakian has been fighting with the people he's been leading over the last 17 years to understand that the purpose here is not to be fine fellows and win the respect of people on the basis of being one of the guys or gals, or that's an archaic word, or being part of the crew, and then on that basis we'll tell them about revolution. No. We have more respect and belief in the masses of people to free themselves. We're going out to them for revolution because nothing else will get them free. So I think this is, to answer the question, really at the heart of it, we actually have to go with this, and then we do have to solve problems with people. There are a lot of problems in making revolution. Babies are not principally a problem, but they are a problem if you have to take care of them. Putting food on the table is,
they're a contradiction.
They're a contradiction. A joyful contradiction. And when this movement gets going, probably everybody here will have some experience of changing somebody else's kids' diapers, okay? That's all right. But if that's what we think the essence of this is, it's not. So you see, I'm going down into this because the essence of it is what was in the speeches. We have to get people together to talk about why we need a revolution, why it's necessary, what it's about. What's the strategy for a revolution? What are the goals of the revolution? What has been brought forward by this leader, and what does it mean to have a leader like this now who can, as I said, chart the course for revolution and navigate the course? It's one thing to have your map when you go out there. It's another thing to deal with the contingencies that come up. Even today with all the goddamn computers, you've all watched these movies when Matt Damon gets caught up on Mars and things like this. You need some people who can navigate that, okay? And you have a great leader, that's part of it. He's providing that leadership now, and he's also provided the framework for it.